Hello everybody, I'm your host, Ami Kaufman, and this is your weekly Road to the White House 2016, where we take a look at the most important and at times most bizarre developments in the race to be president of the United States. Coming up on the show, which Hollywood star has some advice for Donald Trump? Why aren't we hearing much about Bernie Sanders? And who won the Republican debate in Las Vegas this Tuesday? All this and more, but first, let's go to our top 5 countdown. Let's get this show on the road and check out some of the impressive feats those wacky candidates managed to rack up this week. In at number 5, we have for the first time, instead of a candidate, a Hollywood celebrity, Harrison Ford. Busy giving interviews just before the Star Wars The Force Awakens premiere, was asked while in Australia what he thought about Donald Trump, saying he really liked Ford's appearance in Air Force One as a president who stood up for America, to quote Trump. Ford's response upon hearing the compliment? Check it out.
And he liked
Donald, it was a movie. It's not like this in real life. But how would you know?
If I could have Harrison Ford giving candidates reality checks on a daily basis, I would be one happy camper. At number 4, we have Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, we actually haven't seen a lot from Sanders recently, and personally, I've been wondering why. Apparently, according to his campaign, there's a reason for that. It's a blackout from corporate media. In a statement released this week, the Sanders campaign claims ABC's World News Tonight devoted 81 minutes of airtime to the campaign of Donald Trump this year, compared to 20 seconds alone on Sanders to the end of November. They also pointed to NBC's Nightly News, which gave Sanders' campaign 2.9 minutes of airtime, and CBS Evening News, which has given Sanders 6.4 minutes of coverage. A man who is bringing tens of thousands of people to rallies across the country. And now it's time for our top 3, which will all be devoted to the Republican debate held in Las Vegas this Tuesday. In at number 3, we've got the Donald. Now, Trump in the past couple of weeks has been threatening to run independently after the GOP establishment voices concern over his candidacy. When asked if he was willing to rule out a third-party run, Trump gave a surprisingly clear answer.
Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me to question. I really am.
I could have won. Dr. Carson,
excuse me, can I just finish?
Oh, please.
I've gained great respect for the Republican leadership. I've gained great respect for many, and I'm going to even say, in different forms, for the people on the dais. In different forms. But I have great respect for the people I've met through this process. I've never done this process before. I've never been a politician.
First of all, I love the respect in different forms for his colleagues. I can only presume that was a jab at Jeb. Now, Trump has zigzagged on this issue before, so we'll have to wait and see if he'll stick with it, especially if the establishment keeps showing dissatisfaction with its continuing lead in the polls. In at number 2, we've got my favorite neurosurgeon to ever run for president, Dr. Ben Carson. Now, a lot of people were happy that CNN included in its panel of moderators a conservative radio talk show host, Hugh Hewitt. For the most part, Hewitt was doing well until he asked Carson about his ability to make decisions as commander-in-chief that could result in the deaths of many innocent men, women, and children.
Well, interestingly enough, you should see the eyes of some of those children when I say to them, we're going to have to open your head up and take out this tumor. They're not happy about it, believe me. And they don't like me very much at that point. But later on, they love me. Sometimes I sound like him. Later on, they really realize what's going on. And by the same token, you have to be able to look at the big picture and understand that it's actually merciful if you go ahead and finish the job rather than death by 1,000 pricks.
So you are okay with the deaths of thousands of innocent children and civilians? It's like...
You got it.
It's really a shame because the viewers deserved a good answer from Carson on this, who has been known in recent weeks to be totally clueless about foreign policy. Instead, we got what the candidates love to do most, blame the media for everything wrong. And at number 1, we have a lighter moment between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. The two were expected to seriously clash in this debate, with Cruz slowly closing the gap between himself and Trump in the polls. But it was all brotherly love between the two, as we can see in this exchange.
We will build a wall that works, and I'll get Donald Trump to pay for it.
I'll build it. He's just fine. Don't worry.
These two guys as buddies must be a liberal's worst nightmare. On the bright side, at least, Cruz didn't give us any more Princess Bride references. Next up, our focus stories of the week. Let's start with the GOP, which, as we mentioned earlier, held its 5th debate, and boy, was it a stormy one. It doesn't seem like there was a clear winner in this one, but if I were to judge by social media reactions, the boxing matches between Jeb Bush and Donald Trump were the best show in Vegas that night.
The gloves were off almost as soon as the opening bell rang.
Oh, I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
Real
principled.
tough.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
It was Donald Trump versus Jeb Bush on how to fight ISIS.
With Jeb's attitude, we will never be great again. That I can tell you.
And on that controversial proposal to ban Muslims.
Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate, and he'd be a chaos president.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares.
There was Donald Trump versus Rand Paul.
Is Donald Trump a serious candidate? The reason I ask this is...
But the biggest grudge match of all,
He has a wonderful temperament.
Trump versus the Texas senator infringing on his front-runner standing in the polls, never happened. Instead, it was Ted Cruz versus Marco Rubio, both vying to be the party's alternative to the brash billionaire in the lead.
Does Ted Cruz rule out ever legalizing people that are in this country illegally now?
Senator Cruz?
I have never supported legalization.
Do you rule it out?
I have never supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization.
Because, you're not...
Some, like Dr. Ben Carson, struggling to break out of the pack.
But the fact of the matter is, look and see what I've done. And that speaks volumes about strength.
After it was all over...
Mr. Trump, did Jeb Bush have it out for you tonight?
No, he has to do what he has to do. I mean, I fully understand. He's having a hard time, and he wants to get his numbers up.
We'll be talking some more about the debate in a few minutes, but I just want to say 2 things. First, CNN did a much better job this time keeping the focus on the issues and the candidates and not on the moderators themselves. Second, if I had $1 for every time Jeb Bush missed while swinging and then got hit with a 1-2 combination, I'd be a rich guy. Seriously. There's a reason he's polling so low, and you just saw it. I don't get the folks who say he did well in this debate. Okay, off to the Democrats just a few days before their upcoming debate on Saturday. The Dems are showing they have what it takes to battle terror, which polls are now showing is the #1 issue for voters. Frontrunner Hillary Clinton laid out her plans on how to defeat ISIS, and Bernie Sanders campaigned this week in New Hampshire, also focusing on foreign affairs. Let's look at this report.
With terror on the minds of voters, Hillary Clinton out to prove she'll take on ISIS and protect the homeland.
It is not enough to contain ISIS. We must defeat ISIS, break its momentum, and then it's back.
The former Secretary of State is pledging to target ISIS's efforts to recruit online, but also slamming Republicans for fear-mongering.
Bluster and bigotry are not credentials for becoming commander-in-chief.
Clinton heads into Saturday's New Hampshire debate dominating national polls, but it's Senator Bernie Sanders who's the one ahead in the Granite State. And he's toughening his stance on ISIS while telling his loyal supporters who packed those massive rallies that there are other big issues as well.
That obviously ISIS and terrorism are a huge national issue that we've got to address. But so is poverty, so is unemployment, so is education, so is health care, so is the need to protect working families.
It ain't a show without our social media moment of the week. I sometimes wonder how Donald Trump has time for it all. He's interviewed everywhere. He gives speeches at rallies almost daily, and he is constantly tweeting. I'm pretty sure his Twitter feeds will most probably be inducted into the Great Twitter Hall of Fame, particularly a little spat he got into this week. A Saudi billionaire, Al-Walid bin Talal, once an investor in Trump's various businesses, tweeted this: Donald Trump, you are a disgrace not only to the GOP, but to all America. Withdraw from the U.S. presidential race, as you will never win. Never want to shy away from a fight, Trump promptly hit back with this one. Dopey Prince Al-Walid Talal wants to control our U.S. politicians with daddy's money. Can't do it when I get elected. May I point out that it's really very interesting how Trump conveniently forgot that he too would not be here without daddy's money. It gives me great pleasure to be joined this week by our own Road to the White House editor, Sefi Efrati, a political junkie just like me. Great to have you in the studio, Sefi. How you doing?
Rami.
So, okay, let's talk about this Republican debate a bit more. I want to hear what your thoughts about on each candidate and how he did on Tuesday night. Let's start with what I think you are calling the winners. Let's start with Trump.
Trump, you simply cannot out-Trump the Donald.
Right.
This is a point proven again and again. He totally dominated this debate too. Everybody tried to lash at him, but to no avail.
Yeah.
He keeps winning. He's at the center stage, and he's at the center of focus.
Right. And let's talk about Bush, because he actually tried to lash, as you said, at Trump. What happened with him?
This actually, I think he was actually successful at lashing out at
Really?
Bush, because when you use the words, "you will never be president," you could see Trump going all red. Bush came to this debate with very dwindling poll numbers, with almost nothing to lose, with his back to the wall.
Marco Rubio, kind of rising in the polls a little. How did he do in the debate?
Rubio continues his line of finely tuned argument. He's still the fastest speaking candidate on stage. He still maintains the bright young look. And although we did have some heated moments with Cruz or Paul, most of his attacks kept at Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. And Chris Christie, I understand, didn't really get too much airtime, right? Or how did he do?
Still, of all the low-digit polling candidates, I think Christie did the best job of the bunch. He seems to be the one most prepared for the long road ahead. Not so skinny, but he mainly attacked his senator rivals as people who never made a consequential decision in an executive position, and repeatedly emphasized his experience as governor.
Now, okay, let's talk a minute about the guys who I think you don't think really did that well. For example, Rand Paul.
Rand Paul had nothing to lose, but still he lost it all. He barely made it into the main debate, into the main stage, and trying to attack everybody. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody attacked back. Nobody looked at his direction.
And what about John Kasich, the governor of Ohio?
John Kasich had one mission ahead of him, which is to match up his name, his ideas, and his face, something the U.S. citizens so far don't know how to recognize. He has a problem with name recognition. Okay. So, while being still very eloquent as ever, eloquence alone is not enough.
And let's finish off with Lindsey Graham in the early debate. How did he do?
The audience was not impressed. Terrible poll numbers to begin with. Graham could only count on Bush's downfall, but this, I think, did not happen. And
I think we have a little clip of how
let's
he
watch
did, right?
a bit of Graham.
Let's see it.
I'd like to stop sending $350 billion overseas to buy oil from people who hate our guts, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you like to export natural gas to cut Putin's legs out from under him? I'm not afraid of a guy riding around on a horse without his shirt. The guy's got a pair of twos, and we got a full house, and he's walking all over Obama. Mike, the surge worked. It worked. George W. Bush made mistakes, but he did adjust. I blame Obama for ISIL, not Bush. I'm tired of beating on Bush. I miss George W. Bush. I wish you were president right now. We wouldn't be in this mess. I'm tired of dictators walking all over us.
He would get my vote, but then again, I'm not American.
Okay, great having you in the studio, Sefi. Thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you.
It's time for the Kaufman Critique. I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said that most of us don't trust politicians. We all know they've lied at least once during their career, and we all know it's never only once. We usually don't know who the biggest liar is, but the New York Times recently published a most amazing chart by PolitiFact, a fact-checking website that rates the accuracy of claims by elected officials and others who speak up in American politics. Now, before I show you the chart, I want you to all close your eyes, concentrate, and quickly answer my next question. Who do you think lies more, Republicans or Democrats? Okay, you ready? Have your answer? Let's take a look. This chart ranks presidential candidates based on their statements since 2007 from most dishonest to least dishonest. On top is Ben Carson. 84% of his statements are mostly false or worse. Trump is right behind him with 76%. Have you noticed by now which party is holding most of the top spots? Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are tied at only 28%, and below her is her husband, the man who did not have sexual relations with that woman, President Bill Clinton, at 24%. Now, the folks at PolitiFact, a Pulitzer Prize-winning organization, are the first to admit that this is not an actual scientific instrument, but it certainly gives us some proof that yes, politicians do lie, and some lie a lot more than others. That's it for this week. Next week promises to be a whopper with more crazy stuff from those crazy candidates. During the Democrat debate, will Bernie Sanders give any more material for Larry David to impersonate him again on Saturday Night Live? Will Ted Cruz continue his surge in the polls? And will Jeb Bush ever manage to rise above the single digits? Join us next time when we'll run with them down that road to the White House 2016. Bye-bye.